let's take a look at what's making news in print and online this morning. We're joined by Deputy Director at the Australia Institute, Ebony Bennett. Ebony, did you get up early to watch the football?
G'day. No, I didn't. I was up early to do the headlines, but not to watch the football, unfortunately. But it looked like a cracking match.
It was a cracking match, and we're very glad that you've been checking out the headlines for us. Look, we're starting off with the Daily Telegraph today with, honestly, like, I read this story and I was like, what?
I know, I felt the exact same way. So apparently a Chief of Staff to a senior Liberal minister in New South Wales, Tanya Raffoul, she was advised when running for pre-selection for the Liberal Party instead to settle down and have kids, and that she was a bit too assertive to be a Member of Parliament, something I don't think any probably man has ever been advised in terms of his career in our lifetimes. It's just appalling to see. And it really does make you wonder about the future of the Liberal Party. It's looking, if they're giving women advice like this, that it's not really going to be a party of government for very long. It's just going to end up full of mediocre men because all the talented women are probably going to go elsewhere.
Yeah, and there have been some reports this morning in the paper about the Federal Liberal Party review, which is due to come out this week as well, run by Brian Loughnane and another senior Liberal woman. For me, the quotes from the Daily Telegraph story saying, accused David Elliott's Chief of Staff, and he has accused his own party of throwing women under the bus in 5 separate pre-selections. The fact that he can actually say specifically 5 separate pre-selections speaks volumes.
It certainly does, and I believe he also said something along the lines of the Liberal Party's putting testosterone before talent. So when even senior male Liberal members are heaping this kind of criticism against their own party, you have to ask who in the Liberal Party is giving this kind of advice and how can they get them out of the party, because they're doing some very long-term damage here, I think.
Ebony, staying with politics and power prices, realistically, have been in the political spectrum. Gas reserves are a hot topic, and there's a story in the Financial Review about what we should be doing with our gas reserves. Tell us more.
Yeah, so the Australian Financial Review has done a poll which shows that voters are backing more gas extraction. Interestingly, this headline equally could have said voters back price caps on gas. You just have to dig a bit further into the story on that one. But they've asked about this obviously because of the government's market intervention, because gas prices and coal prices have exploded thanks to Russia's war in Ukraine. Interestingly, this poll also shows that the Labor Party has a commanding lead over the coalition in two-party preferred terms, 54 to 46. But ultimately, this is going to be continuing a massive problem for the Labor government to manage. And ultimately, we know that we've tripled gas supply in basically the past decade, and prices keep going up because the gas market is broken. Adding additional supply doesn't help if gas companies just keep exporting it overseas where they can make more profits, unfortunately. So good to know that voters are backing those price caps for the government, but there's a lot more to be done to fix up Australia's gas market.
Yeah, and the gas companies are obviously very much arguing that they need to be able to get more gas out, they want more reserves, so I suppose they would see the side of that poll as seeing that most people are backing more exploration. That's what they'll take out of that. But we are still talking energy this morning because there's a story in The Australian today about our resources boom. The bottom line is due to take a hit.
That's right. So just as the Financial Review is saying extract more gas in the Australian... the Financial Review saying that. In the Australian, we're seeing that there's forecasts for global demand for energy to reduce, and that profits from the resources sector are likely to drop next financial year. It's not a huge problem because obviously gas and coal have been experiencing massive windfall profits, just tens of billions of dollars that they weren't expecting due to Russia's war in Ukraine, pushing the price of resources up all over the globe. But it will be of concern to Treasurer Jim Chalmers, who's trying to pull debt and deficit into more control. But ultimately, it also shows that there's been massive investment in clean energy technology, and ultimately that's going to be the best way forward for consumers for cheap energy. It's the cheapest cheapest form of new energy to build.
Just in terms of what it's going to do to our budget, I mean, the budget forecasts have not been forecasting the revenues at those record prices that we've seen. So, you know, it's not as though we're going to have a sudden surprise cut to the revenues from that.
Yeah, it's coming down from record highs, and obviously the government keeps an eye on these kinds of things. But you know, it is really due to Russia's war in Ukraine that those massive profits have come through. So with demand reducing around the world and slowing down, it'll just really take the heat out of the energy market sector.
And just quickly, speaking of energy, and that has to do with climate change as well, former Treasury Secretary Ken Henry's been pretty vocal and had some powerful things to say. What's he said?
Yeah, he has really said that a lot of MPs have been ill-equipped to deal with some of the biggest challenges facing Australia, pointing in particular to climate change and the decade of inaction that we've had to address climate change and reduce Australia's emissions. So basically he's talked about MPs being ill-equipped to deal with our capitalist economy, that they make so many short-term decisions and aren't looking to the long-term future of Australia. Obviously we've had a change of government and a change of parliament on the back of huge voter concern about climate change. So hopefully those things will change in the long term, and with this term of Parliament we've seen greater ambition in terms of targets, but we do have the safeguard mechanism debate coming up next year, and we still have a huge challenge ahead of us to reduce Australia's emissions. So it's going to be a very big debate coming for this Parliament, and we'll put this idea to the test whether this crop of MPs are much better equipped to deal with climate action after a decade of doing not much of anything.
Ebony, thanks so much for getting up and running us through all of those stories. Happy Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Have a great holiday.